Hi, and welcome to the Feel Good Always podcast. I'm Becky Bradley, and this is Real Stories of Love, Connection, and Remembering Who We Are. Today, I'm doing a solo podcast where I'm going to be talking about the physical symptoms that we might be feeling inside of our bodies as this new energy is coming onto the earth. So, before I start with that, I want to welcome anybody that is new here, that has just found this podcast, and everybody that's been following along as we do this together, as we really bring this new energy onto the earth so that we could feel good always. You know, if you're new here, this podcast was born out of really me just listening to the guidance, looking at my life as an algorithm, and really seeing what needs to be said. My daughter, Kira Bradley, at 15 years old, was in a fatal UTV accident, soul crushing, obviously. And but what that did was really open me up to hear and feel, see all of these things. And this was always going to happen. And really, what I've been told and what I fully embody and experience is a higher level of consciousness, ability to merge consciousness with many other people, people, things, animals, really everything, really feeling the connectedness and the oneness of everything. And and I just listen. And so I listen and I follow the directions. And this podcast right here, talking about physical symptoms, that's what we're going to talk about today, because that is what's been coming into my awareness. And even if you're not listening to this when it comes out, you're finding it at the right time. So the people that are listening, either you're having this same experience or you will be, and this will help keep you calm, because part of my job here is to help bring calm to this ascension, this like what we are doing here on earth. And my daughter Kira, she is fully with me and helps me along with really everything and everyone, because we're all doing this work. And it could be a little bumpy, and I know that because I have experienced great suffering myself, and I have experienced moving into this higher level of consciousness and what it can do to the body and what that can feel like. And it can be it can cause anxiety, and it can cause all kinds of things. So I want to just reiterate some of the things that I've been talking about. I say the same things over and over again. If you've been listening to some previous podcasts, we talk about only love is real. That really is all there is. Only love is real. Everything else is not real. It doesn't mean that we don't feel things like fear, but only love is real. So we are remembering that. Even in the hardest things, we are remembering to live fully. Are remembering that only love is real. And we've also been talking about our lives being an algorithm. Just like I said, I'm doing this podcast because my life has been showing me a lot of people, including myself, with physical symptoms. So it's like, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. So if we are aware and we are paying attention and we just watch with awareness instead of fear, and you can feel the fear in your body and just ask and be curious. Now, I'm not saying that this is super easy, but I'm saying just the awareness that the fear, the anger, all of that, that we can watch it in the body and just try to remember that only love is real, using our life as a guide to show us what are you trying to show me? You know, what are you trying to show me? What are you trying to show me with this pain, or this emotional pain, or this physical pain? And another thing that we talked about in a couple podcasts ago was eyes on your own paper. We are going to really focus on ourselves here at all times. We remember that when we take care of ourselves, that it really is rippling out into the collective. It is rippling out starts with everyone around us, anywhere we go, but our energy goes far and wide. And so when you do this work, when you sit here and you listen to this podcast or you watch this podcast, you're doing that work. And when you choose love over fear or hate or anger, you are doing the work. And so I think that that is really amazing. And I just wanted to remind you, eyes on your own paper, right? I remind myself, I don't need to be judging. I just need to do what I need to do and try not to get stuck in the problems of the world and what I think everybody should be doing. So as we move into this new earth, this higher dimensional awareness and connection, the only way that I can connect in this way, where I am connecting with Kira, being able to really just know things, where the signs, the rainbows can appear just because I said it, the deer can appear, my pictures on my phone, I will think about something, it will pop up. And I know that happens a lot to people, but it goes beyond just the algorithm of our phones, or I can think of something and a picture will appear on the wall. If all of that is happening, I am in a higher vibration. I talk about higher vibration and how to bring yourself into that on a previous podcast. But when we are in this higher vibration, we are getting more energy into our bodies. And so that can cause things that are physically hard for us to walk through, because even though my consciousness is wide open, it is wide open. I have all kinds of things coming in. My body is still a human body. I am trying to walk through all of this multidimensional communication, all of these wild signs. And I also have this body that is trying to keep up. And so the body is speaking. It speaks to us. It integrates these new frequencies that are coming onto the earth. As we collectively are all moving into the higher vibrations. If you are listening to this podcast, you are moving into that higher vibration. So it can be uncomfortable and confusing, but it's not something to be afraid of. It's part of us remembering. It really is remembering the truth of who we are, and we're really being upgraded. I know that if somebody had said that to me a couple years ago, like our bodies are being upgraded, I would have been like, what are you talking about? But really, it is. My body has continued to be able to hold more light, more connection. I can feel the energy running through my body. And when I can feel it right now, as I said that, I can feel all of you. And once we really learn to pay attention to our bodies, we can feel that energy. We can learn to root it down into the earth and to be curious about what's going on instead of moving into fear. It's just showing us where the energy is asking to move. And so some of the ways that this might show up for you is in heart palpitations. So I've had multiple people around me talking about their heart. They're having heart palpitations. These are also people that are pretty connected. They are also receiving lots of signs. They are having some really wild things that haven't happened to them before. And all I can do is say, okay, that sounds about right. Your body is trying to keep up. Now, that doesn't mean that these people don't still go to their doctor and get checked out. I'm not saying to not, have your physical symptoms like heart palpitations checked out by your doctor. But what I am doing is saying, it feels like that, like there are multiple people around me that are having this same symptom, and it is not from a physical reason, like something wrong with the heart. It is the body trying to integrate this really high frequency energy. So there can be pressure in the chest. There can be tingling, numbness in your fingers, in your dizziness. That's also when we're not breathing and bringing in enough air, when we can feel anxious. Holding the breath can cause the tingling and the numbness, but so can the higher energy. And so it could also look like being sick to your stomach, digestive changes, joint pain, knee, really anything physical. Everything is energy, and it's all trying to teach us something. So I know that some people, when they're feeling a high connection to spirit, where maybe they are seeing a lot of signs, or they're sitting in meditation and feeling like they're being very connected, maybe connecting to spirit, they can get lightheaded and shaky. So my hands have been shaky my entire life. So were my daughter Kira's. And so for me, I know that I understand now that shakiness was this energy that's always really been running through my body. And so once I started connecting with Kira, really like on the other side, and I was starting to have so many things happen, as you are starting to hear on the podcast. I'm going to be sharing some stuff next week on the podcast with Andrea. A lot of that really, I was experiencing parallel lifetimes. I was experiencing the oversoul, all of this stuff embodied. It's not stuff that I'm reading about. It's stuff that I am experiencing here, which my body, if I'm able to experience almost like, well, it is an alternate reality to what I would know, my body has to get used to it. So I was experiencing, I was getting sick every 6 weeks. That's still happening. I will get sick every 6 weeks. I will come down with a cold and I'll kind of be in bed for 5 days. And that's not the norm for Becky Bradley. I'm a very healthy person. I don't get sick. But now that is what is happening. Ever since I started really experiencing this high level almost every 6 weeks. And so this time what happened was back pain. I got back pain instead of being sick. And instead of being frustrated, like, why am I always getting sick? I know why I'm getting sick, because my consciousness is so expanded that my body needs help integrating. And so I've had all kinds of sicknesses, and it's not because I'm being exposed to a bunch of germs. I am very clear, and I know that it is because my body needs me to rest. It needs me to lay down, and to really give it some time. So another thing is a lot of people being really exhausted right now. The energy on the earth, like way more exhausted than you normally would be, where it doesn't really make any sense. Or for me, I will have a ton of energy. Now I have an amazing capacity to do a lot. I've kind of always been like that. But as I continue to move into these higher levels of consciousness where I can literally feel the light running through my body and just connect, everything is connected. I feel that light and I am able to expand. So what is really amazing and wild about what's happened, one of the things is that I only need like 5 hours of sleep right now, which is crazy because I usually get 8. And so for the last, I don't know, 4 months, I mean, I am up at 3:30 in the morning, raring to go. I'm ready. I'm like, what do you need me to do? Now, of course, I have my morning routine where I meditate and I journal, but I'm excited to get up. I am just being fed this beautiful energy. So I need less sleep. And I always say, we have belief systems, right? We have things that we've been told. And so I started to catch myself getting really nervous about this and like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting enough sleep. And then my daughter, Maddie, finally said to me, like, well, how do you feel? And the truth was I felt fine, felt pretty good. And so that's why I don't wear a watch that tells me about my sleep. I just listen to my body. And I know some people need to wear that. I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying for me, because we're always listening to what we need, that I just needed less sleep. There can be emotional waves, like all of a sudden it's like, wow, there's a lot going on here. So that's another thing that can happen physically. I want to talk about what happened to me in 2021 because my daughter is having a parallel experience to what happened to me in 2021. And I know that everything is connected. We remember that everything is happening now. And back in 2021, I had just, beginning of August, first week of August, I had just got back from a trip from Hawaii. I was feeling great, super relaxed. And I started to get a muscle twitch in my shoulder, like massive muscle twitch, like you could see it twitching. And immediate anxiety entered my body. So I went from being super calm to like panic almost. And that whole thing progressed into muscle twitches all over my body. For about a 2 to 3 month period, muscle twitches everywhere, really high anxiety, talking to the psychiatrist. I thought I had ALS because it really made no sense. And then as I would attach to these really strange symptoms of, I'd be sitting there and my legs would twitch. I would literally kind of like, I feel like sometimes my stomach, like a bouncing in my stomach, almost like my organs were bouncing. It was really unnerving. And I was nervous about it. I ended up seeing the head of Kaiser Neurology because I thought I had ALS. Because also my mind is very powerful and my mind was attaching to something being wrong with me. All the evidence was pointing towards something being wrong with me because we really are powerful. We have powerful minds. And so as I began to look for the things that would really validate what my mind was thinking, it gave me more and more evidence, more and more muscle twitching, more and more anxiety. And turns out I did not have ALS. I had a lot of somatic stuff coming up. That's what leads me to breath work. That's what leads me to end up in a lot of work around feeling my feelings. And that was really what led me to that, just really understanding how to feel my feelings because it was like, I felt like it was coming out in the body. So feeling my feelings is super important if I'm sitting here today talking to you guys about this and really learning about my feelings. I was super intentional for over a year, meeting for 3 hours a week with a couple other women as we went through this huge workbook on our childhood stuff and feelings. I am going to do a podcast on the feelings thing and talking about everything I did and continue to do, because it's all in the body. So all of those muscle twitches, all of that stuff did lead me to take some action, because sometimes the body's trying to tell you something. And my body was trying to get me to get uncomfortable enough to take some action. And I did. And thankfully I did, because when my daughter Kira dies, I didn't stuff any of those feelings. So it was all unfolding as it should. I can look back and I can see why. I can see why it happened, especially in the position I sit in today to try to help others as we all move into these higher frequencies. So yes, that those muscle twitches, that was all energetic. It was my soul, all part of the plan. So I did not have anything physically wrong with me, but I do know what it's like to feel very scared from these very intense feelings. And when you have an anxious mind, it can really feed into health anxiety. So some of the things I suggest is don't Google anything. Do not Google symptoms if you're already an anxious person. Do not start looking all over the place for things that are wrong with you. It's like, really, we come back into the body and ask what it is trying to say to us. I remember at the time when all the muscle twitches, just laying there and trying to feel what my body was trying to say. And I had to get quiet enough, I had to get quiet enough to hear this. And so we're being flooded with light. Solar flares, cosmic activity, collective activity, that's all part of us moving into this higher levels of consciousness. Our nervous systems, our hearts, our cells, they're learning to hold more light. And that can sometimes show up like in all of these sensations. And so when I talk about our life being an algorithm, I just want to share this really quick with you. This morning, and this is how I know that I need to be doing this podcast, because I just get shown, because I'm in this higher level of consciousness where I can just see it. It's very obvious. Now, that wasn't always the case, but as I continue to surrender, I continue to see more. So I always have featured photos. My featured photos are always telling me either about something that's going to happen or something that just happened. And so today I had a featured photo, and it was a picture of my daughter. And I knew, because I heard, look closer. So I look closer and and on her bracelet is the name Jason. I can scroll in and see the name Jason on her, like she has a little bracelet. Well, about an hour later, my husband had sent me a Instagram reel, and it was all about the energies coming onto the earth, talking about solar flares, cosmic activity, quantum jumping and timeline jumping. I don't really know. I experience and embody it. I don't have the words to fully explain that to you, but it's starting to be taught to me. So what I want to say about this is he's talking about all these physical symptoms. Now, guess what his name was? Jason. So those are the ways that I see. So first I see the featured photo, then it's like, look closer, the name Jason, and then there's this reel. And it's not just about us listening to reels. That's how we pay attention to what we are being shown. And so I just know that we have higher energies that are coming onto earth, and that I want to provide some calm for all of you. That's it. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I first want to say there's nothing wrong with checking with your doctor. Check with your doctor. My daughter, Maddie, had a parallel experience to me at the beginning of August, just like me 4 years ago. She started having muscle twitches. She started having a lot of anxiety, almost the exact same experience that I had 4 years ago. She started having this happen to her. And I said, go to your doctor. That will help, relieve this fear that you might have some kind of muscle disease or something. I knew that she is also experiencing this high level of connection, and that it's just her body trying to integrate all of the energy. I know that as her mother, and I continue to provide that calm for her, and that she's having a mirrored experience. But I want to tell you that I said, go to the doctor. So also, you can sometimes go to the doctor just to ease your fears, especially with health anxiety. So the ways that we can support our body through this is bringing our energy back into balance, staying grounded. I talk about that all the time. It's like going feet out in the grass, going for a walk, sitting outside, doing some breath work, walking barefoot, outside, sitting on the ground, just feeling anchored, envisioning yourself anchored to the earth, and really just breathing. That's another thing that's really been coming in for me is breath. And I've done when Kira died, I did a lot of breath work. There's a ton of stuff out there on YouTube, box breathing, and you can go on different apps, meditation apps. Breath work is huge. When you start having physical symptoms, to just come back into our body, there's all kinds of different breath work that you can do. That helps bring our consciousness back into our bodies. Of course, we can always meditate. I highly recommend meditation. Sitting in silence, just giving your body a time to integrate. Any kind of moving of our bodies. That could be, for me, a walk, riding a bike. And I know it's hard when you have like a physical symptom that you're in pain. Like I just had a bunch of back pain, so I couldn't physically move, as much as I would have liked to. But I still find a way to move, and like staying hydrated and eating, intuitively eating, listening to what your body truly needs, lighter foods, more grounding nourishment, and resting when you're having a lot of these physical symptoms. So recently I had the back pain that I was talking about. And what I was able to see is it got me quiet enough to rest and to be able to kind of look at what had happened in the week before energetically, with a lot of people having things going on around me. Nothing happens in our world, in our life, as an algorithm that is not trying to show us something. So I knew the second I had shooting back pain, I knew to ask, what is this? I didn't do anything wrong from having a busy week, but what I was able to see is a lot of things were happening around me, to other people, with my children, in the collective, just a lot of stuff that was coming through energetically, through pain. And me just knowing to ask, what does my body need? And being able to surrender to, this is the way it is in this moment. This shooting back pain, it's trying to tell me something, to be curious about it instead of frustrated. I wasn't frustrated, even though it was very painful. I'm very familiar with emotional pain, which is, when I'm in the depths of my own emotional pain, I would have taken any physical pain at that point. I'm not as familiar with really bad physical pain. But I have had some, and, trying to just stay in the moment and ask what it's trying to tell me. So doing that, and really, journaling is always really good to talk about what's happening, talking to somebody else about it, connecting with other people. I was always kind of, I didn't want to breathe light into the things I was fearful of. So I definitely didn't want to tell everybody that I was afraid I had ALS, but I did tell like a couple of people. So because I don't want to like build the energy on a fear, but I could tell somebody that I could trust, that they would say, like, kind of like, I'm saying to my daughter, is like, that's actually most likely not what's happening. Like, your mind is just attaching to something, and we have powerful minds. And so if you find somebody like that, even listening to this podcast, again, if you start having physical symptoms freaking you out, then maybe that helps bring you some calm. Because the more light we hold in these bodies, it's the more care and presence that we are going to need, and our bodies are going to require. So we'll be talking more about this. I hope that I provided you with some kind of, information that helps you as we move into this, because it's just like Kira said, you're going to need to help people when the change comes. And I've been through this stuff, and I'll continue to go through things, and hopefully I could help you. And then you will help other people. I know my daughter, Maddie, as she's already experienced her own physical symptoms, has already been able to help somebody else who's having a physical symptom. It's nice to be able to hear that somebody else had these symptoms and they weren't actually physically dying, because you're like, I feel like I might be dying. And you're not, and we can't die anyways. So that's a whole thing. So just remember that these times we're in, they're very powerful and they're transformative, okay? And these new energies that are coming onto the earth, they're upgrading us physically, emotionally, spiritually. And instead of resisting this, we can feel it, we can soften, we can listen, trust our bodies, that we are being aligned to a higher truth, that we are remembering. We're all doing this together, that it is done. We're just walking to it, and that we'll do it together, and you're not alone. And to remember that only love is real. Stay present and curious and grounded. And as always, we got to feel good always. So in the next episode, I'm going to be sharing about this theme that has also come through in the podcast I just recorded with Heather Harmon, that we are always right where we are supposed to be. You know, even in physical distress, we are right where we're supposed to be. So sometimes it doesn't feel like that, but I'm going to be spreading some calm energy to remind you of that truth. I could say that one over and over again, you know, just continuing to spread that truth, because we do need to hear things over and over, and that's what's coming next. And so thank you. If you have not followed, go ahead and click follow. That helps get this podcast to other people. And then if you go to the show page, you can leave the stars and the review. That would be awesome. Thank you so much. We do this together. Until next time.